So we have a problem, -2x² plus 8x plus 11 equals 0. And it wants us to complete the square. The best way to start off by doing this, we want to have the number in front of x² equal 1. So to do that, we're going to divide everything by -2. Get x² minus 4x minus 11 over 2 equals 0. That's ugly, but it is what it is. Then to complete the square, we add 11 halves to both sides. Morning, Pedro, Xavier. Well, good afternoon. Then we take this, we cut it in half. When we cut it in half, it gives us what we're going to have for completing the square. -4 divided by 2 is -2. Then what we do is we square it, and we add that to both sides. So -4 over 2 is -2, squared is 4. And since I have a fraction over here, I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2. And that'll become 8 over 2. So I'm going to have 11 over 2 plus 8 over 2. We add fractions, we add the numerator. Then we take the square root. The left side is x minus 2. The right side is plus or minus the square root of 19 over the square root of 2. Now it's not going to like the square root on the bottom. So let's multiply this by square root of 2 over square root of 2. And we get x minus 2 equals plus or minus. That's going to be square root of 38. And now the bottom is 2 without a radical. And then we add 2 to both sides. And we get x equals 2 plus or minus square root of 38 over 2. Now, the homework is going to want you to do them separately. So one of these is 2 plus square root of 38 over 2. And the other is 2 minus square root of 38 over 2. In fact, the homework even says rationalize all denominators. That's what doing this is. If it specifies rationalize all denominators, that's what we did there. Any questions on that? Make sense? You don't know what you wanna do, or? The next one has. Solve the equation using the square root property. So we want to tackle this by taking the square root of both sides. It tells us what to do. The right side, -9, when we have a negative, it gives us an I. And the square root of 9 is 3. And since we took the square root, it's plus or minus. I'm gonna leave a lot of room there, let me make some more room. And we subtract -5 from both sides. And the -5 does not have an I, so it cannot be combined with the other one. We get -5 plus or minus 3i. Which is two answers, -5 plus 3i, -5 minus 3i. Another. Alright, next one says solve using the zero factor property. The zero factor property says if we got f times g equals 0, then either f equals 0 or g equals 0. That's a zero factor property, which means they want us to factor this. So we need to find things that multiply to 54. A times c is 54, and add to negative 15, which is b. Well, the only way we get two numbers to add to a negative number is if one of them is negative. And if one of them is negative, but they multiply and make a positive number, they both have to be negative. So we can just go down the list. -1 and -54 add to -55, that's not it. -2 goes into it 27 times. That's -29. 3 goes into it 18 times, that's -21. 4 does not go into it, 5 doesn't go into it, 6 goes into it 9 times. That's -15. So this factors to b minus 6 and b minus 9. Then we set each one of these equal to 0, like following the zero property rule. B minus 6 equals 0, or B minus 9 equals 0. Separate. We add 6 to both sides, and 9 to both sides here. And I get B equals 6 or B equals 9. So 6, comma, or 9. Another you want to look at? Do this one, and then we'll look at some graphing that'll help us with today's lecture. So this has x squared minus 24x plus 144 equals 0. And it says evaluate the discriminant. So the discriminant comes from the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula, if we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the quadratic formula says x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The discriminant is in the radical. So we need to apply that information here to find out what it is. So I have, if I match up variables with numbers. A doesn't have a value listed, so A has to equal 1. B equals -24. And C is 144. So b squared minus 4ac is -24 squared minus 4 times 1 times 144. And I'm getting 0. This is 576 minus 576. Then it asks us to determine the number of distinct solutions. And what type of solutions? And what they broke down the type of solutions down into is rational, irrational, or complex. Non-real complex is how they described it. So this is grabbing information from X up here. If the discriminant equals 0, then that radical equals 0. And we get x equals -b over 2a. There's just one solution. And it's rational. Did I type that in, or did it just have it drop down like choose? When this happens, this is they're calling it a double solution. I mentioned this the other day, it's a solution with multiplicity of 2. But I didn't show you how it applies to this problem. Because we haven't hit multiplicity yet. Now, for the other ones, if the discriminant is less than 0, then I have a negative number in here. And we get complex numbers. 2 complex roots for solutions. And if the discriminant is greater than 0, This is where we have a fork. Now either in both cases, this is the square root of some number. If it's a perfect square. So the root goes away, that radical goes away. This is called rational. It makes a ratio. There is no radical present. If there's a radical. It's irrational. Okay. So let's do some more graphing. Because we're doing more graphing today, it'll be helpful to take a look at. More examples from 3.1 and 3.2, or 2.1 and 2.2. We could have 2x plus 3y equals 6. And they might give us a table to fill in some numbers. So if they give us a table to fill in some numbers, I'll just label them. Let's do A, B, C, D. So that my work over here is a little bit clearer. Plug in the value they give you. Plug in, give them value. To find the other value. So we had 2x plus 3y equals 6. I guess now I'll put A. Plug in 0 for x. I have 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 6. 2 times 0 is 0, so I have 3y equals 6. Divide by 3, and I get y equals 2. That goes with the x equals 0. They make an ordered pair 0, 2. Then we'll do the other one to 0. I'm plugging in 0 for y. And I get 2x equals 6. Divide by 2 and they get x equals 3. That gives us the ordered pair of 3 zeros. C, x equals 1. So I have 2 times 1 plus 3y equals 6. That's 2 plus 3y equals 6. We'll subtract 2 from both sides. We get 3y equals 4. We divide by 3 and we get y equals 4/3. So this gives us the ordered pair 1, 4/3. Why don't you guys take a second to do D? Jimmy? Alright, what'd you guys get? X equals 3 halves? Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Is that what you got too?
Yes.
Alright, let's see what happens. Looking like it. X equals 3 halves is indeed it. So this is the point 3 halves, comma 1. Now we plot. All of these are within 2 of the origin, which makes it easy. I can make big boxes here. Two, -2, -2. Oh, I was wrong. This goes over to 3 right here. Son of a bitch. So I have 3, 0, and 0, 2. Those are my top 2 points. These are called the intercepts. 0, 2 is crossing the y-axis, so this one is the y-intercept. And 3, 0 is where it hits the x-axis, so this is the x-intercept. It's where the line crosses those axes. Now I got 1 and 4/3. 4/3 is a little bit over 1. And I got 3 halves and 1. 3 halves is 1.5. I got 1 right there. So that is point C and that is point D. Now presumably, I can't see very well because I'm looking at it sideways. It does looks like they're fairly straight. I rotated to connect the dots.
Safe to say that, you know, you have equation, you got 2x plus 3y 6. You always have a exponent of 1. Is it safe to say that it's always going to be a straight line?
Yes. If everything has an exponent of 1, it's always a straight line. In fact, anything that doesn't have an exponent of 1 will curve. That includes square roots, that includes squares, cubes, x to the 15th. If you were a crackhead. Let's give you guys a fun one. Does anyone need that up longer? Are you sure? Okay, stop right there. Let's see. 4x minus 5y equals. Oh, what do I want to have here? 20. And you guys find. Do x 0, y 0. I don't know, x is 2 and y is 3. Let's do 2 on both of them. Yeah, that right there. See. Alright, so A, B, C, D. I have 4 times 0 minus 5y equals 20. So -5y equals 20. Divide by -5, and I get y equals -4. So this is the ordered pair. 0, -4. Now we stick in y is 0. X equals 5. So I get 5, 0 for my ordered pair there. Times 2 minus 5y equals 20. 8 minus 5y equals 20. This is gonna be ugly. Negative 5y equals 12. And divide by negative 5, I get negative 12 over 5. Which is negative 2.4. Negative 2.4 might be a little bit easier to graph, so I'll put it like that. And D. I make y 2, I have 4x minus 5 times 2 equals 10. 20, I mean. 4x minus 10 equals 20. Add 10 to both sides. I get 4x equals 30. Divide by 4, and I get x equals 30 over 4, which is 15 over 2, which is 7.5. So I'm looking at my coordinates and I don't have a y value that's well, I do have a y value that's positive 2. I don't have to go very high up on my y values, and I have no negative x values. So I'm gonna make my graph where I see most of what's to the lower right. X, this is y. My two intercepts are 0, -4, and 5, 0. I can already connect the dots with those, and I hope my other points are on that line. Two, -2.4. That's pretty close. If my spacing was done better, it would be spot on. And 7.5, 2 is right there. So those are all looking good. Any questions? Pause the video. Stop the video.